Welcome to the NFL Show on the Grizzly True Sports Network. I am your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host from the FF Face-Off, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, Mike. What about you?
I'm doing okay. I liked both teams last night, so it didn't really bother me either way. I'd have liked to see the Vikings win, though, just so Kirk Cousins could rub it in your face. But we saw a great football game last night between two really good teams that, weren't necessarily 100% healthy.
No, and during this impressive run for Kirk Cousins, he hasn't had Adam Thielen. He's missed a lot of time, and Kyle Rudolph stepped up, and Irv Smith, the rookie tight end, stepped up, and at one point last night, both Diggs and Dalvin Cook was out. So Kirk Cousins was without his three top weapons for a while, for a lot of that game, and nearly pulled it out.
Yeah, and when I look at this is like the second time in 3 weeks the Seahawks have engaged in a bizarre game on prime time against an NFC powerhouse. They've won them both, one on the road in San Francisco, one at home last night against Minnesota. And this, to me, is why Russell Wilson is the MVP. Russell Wilson is a guy that, when you hear him mic'd up, he's the kind of guy that makes everybody around him better. He's like a Larry Bird or a Magic Johnson, where just him being on the team gives everybody this confidence that they're going to win and makes everybody better.
Yeah, and I said this to you in a text message last night. I feel like Russell Wilson has that same it factor, that same, where he can rally everybody around him, will them to win, and make his supporting cast better. The same as Tom Brady, and the only difference between, Brady and Russell Wilson, realistically, is the coach. Yeah. Not saying, and I like Pete Carroll, but he's not Bill Belichick. Nobody is.
No, he's not even close. But the thing is this, with Russell Wilson, they've got a chance. When you look at this team, the offensive line is not very good. They do have some receiving weapons, but the defense, not very good. But they're sitting here at 10-2, and I think if you matched them up player for player with the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFC, they would come up sorely lacking everywhere but at the quarterback position.
You're talking about Seattle here.
Yeah, because the offensive line and defense have issues.
Yeah, but they do have some firepower at running back. Chris Carson, he got banged up a little bit, and really in the past 2 weeks it was Rashad Penny, who was a first-round pick last year, who stepped up. And, it was a quiet game for Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, the rookie this year. He's playing well. That team is really starting to gel. And it's happening at the right time. And I know they've gelled all season long, but I feel like they're getting better.
Yeah, and
because the competition is a little bit stiffer right now.
Yeah, and the thing that stood out to me was defensively, I think they're having issues, especially with the DBs. But that front seven is developing into one of the league's best with Jerron Reed, Jadeveon Clowney, Ziggy Ansah. And they shut down Minnesota's running game last night, even before Cook went out with the shoulder injury.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it, they traded for Jadeveon Clowney right before the season started, and he's just now, I think, picking up the defense and getting comfortable with Seattle because now he's starting to make a difference.
Yeah, and as of last night, the NFC West now runs through Seattle. The Seahawks are currently tied atop the division with San Francisco at 10-2, but they own the tiebreaker. Right now, I think the Saints would be the number 1 seed, and the Seahawks would be number 2 because of that Saints win in Seattle with Teddy Bridgewater leading them in Week 3. Minnesota, they're now a game behind the Packers, who are 9-3, and the Packers' schedule is so easy here. Minnesota could be looking at being the number 5 seed in the playoffs.
Well, where does that go for San Francisco?
Or the 6th seed, yeah, because you got Minnesota and San Francisco could be 5 and 6. And I think this is the first year where whoever wins the NFC East shouldn't even be allowed in the playoffs because they're 5 games behind the wild card teams.
Yeah, that's just, they're going to get in. Somebody's going to get in by default.
Yeah, and somebody's going to get their brains beat in by default. And the other thing here is, what about the Rams in this situation? The Rams are only like a game behind the Vikings right now. Am I reading too much into a beatdown of the Cardinals? Or are the Rams a serious contender here?
You see, that's the thing. The Rams are one of two teams because the Rams of last year, they were able to run the ball because of the offensive line. Even when Gurley injured his knee and C.J. Anderson stepped in, their line was a lot better than it was this year. Of course, they lost the 2 starters. Saffold ended up in Tennessee, and John Sullivan, their center, retired, and that line completely collapsed. So when they can run the ball and protect Goff, you see what the Rams can do. They have explosive weapons. They have, depth at wide receiver. If one goes down, they have Josh Reynolds who steps in. Gerald Everett went down at tight end. Tyler Higbee had a career game last week. And then that defense plays really outstanding. And I know that they got slammed by the Ravens, but the Ravens have been doing that to every defense. And I think that's what's going to have to carry the Rams. If they're going to make a run, their defense is going to have to play shutdown football. And after watching the highlights they were throwing Kyler Murray around like a ragdoll.
Yeah, and I think
that pass rush was outstanding.
The game that's going to come back to haunt the Rams was that 17-12 loss on November the 10th to the Steelers, because they've got to host Seattle. They go to Dallas. They go to San Francisco. They play the Cardinals at the end of the season. So I think they get out of this 2-2, 3-1 at the best, and it's probably not good enough to catch Minnesota at the end anyways.
Is it me? I feel like the Rams and the Cowboys are almost having like a similar type of a season to where they either look really good or really bad. Like there is no middle ground.
The only disagreement I would have, I think they're having similar seasons because of one simple thing. They are really good teams when they play bad teams. When they play good teams, they usually get the hell beat out of them. I mean, because if you look at the Rams here, the only game that they've won over a team with a winning record was that Week 2 win against the Saints when Drew Brees went down.
Yes.
Other than that, all of their wins, I think, I'm looking at it now, but all their wins have been against teams with losing records.
So, yeah, very similar to Dallas.
Yeah, because they can beat bad teams, but if you get a average to better than average team, they get beat. And right now, I don't see the Rams beating a Seahawks team, but it is at home, and if they get that, they could beat the Cowboys, but then you get the Niners, so they could go 3-1. If they go 3-1, the rest of the way they're sitting at 10-6. I don't know that 10-6 is good enough to get in this year, though.
No, unless you're in the NFC East.
Well, yeah, because then 7 wins will get you in. So you're admitting your Cowboys are dead.
There was a part of me wanting Philly to beat Miami just to bury the Cowboys and fire Jason Garrett, but that didn't happen. And now I actually heard one of the Cowboys beat reporters, Jane Slater, suggest yesterday, she was on one of the national radio programs, saying that if they make the playoffs and win a game, there's a good chance Garrett's going to come back if they can't get Lincoln Riley. So I think that's kind of...
Wait a second. So there's other people talking about Lincoln Riley now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Where'd you hear that first?
Oh, from here, from you.
Okay.
But, Lincoln Riley is obviously at the top of the list. He can stay in college for however. He's a young guy. And I think Dallas has that mentality where Jason Garrett's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Who's the devil we don't know?
I guess anybody not named Lincoln Riley that can possibly coach the team? Because you know what you can get out of Garrett.
I think this. We know from the Dave Campo and all the guys that have been hired by Jerry Jones as the head coach. It's kind of like I'm a Bengals fan, and when everybody wanted to get rid of Marvin Lewis, I just said, hey, you know what the ownership is, and you may not get something as good as Marvin Lewis. And the Bengals got what they got because in the end, if Jerry Jones is not willing to give up some control here, it's going to be hard to get even a college coach. I mean, Lincoln Riley's not coming here letting Jerry Jones run everything.
No, but I mean, there's not many coaches who play the general manager role either.
Yeah, but this is the thing. There's not
Which
many coaches.
Which to me, it's a little crazy that they're going to let Bill O'Brien do that next year because the rumors are they're not going to bring in a general manager. So,
well, how about this though?
I don't know if he's earned the right to have that.
This is the thing though. The general manager usually works with the head coach. Who's the general manager for the Cowboys?
Steven, I believe.
Yeah, which means Jerry is in charge. And I think the problem here is not so much that you can't be your own GM, because as you said, most can. It's the problem that if you want something, you may not get it, because Jerry may just overrule you. Where in a normal situation, if the head coach wants a certain player, he's probably going to get that player if he has a good GM and he has a good working relationship with him. You there?
No, I'm here.
So, I just think that it's a little different in Dallas, just like it's a little different in Cincinnati, and I don't think they get a choice to do anything. MVP, you still on the Lamar Jackson train?
Here's the thing with the MVP. I think we can all agree that Russell Wilson's the most deserving of it. But because Lamar Jackson, he's fairly new, he's fresh, he's doing it different with the way he plays the position, the way he runs the ball. And the Ravens, I don't know if many people thought the Ravens would be this good. I think he's going to end up getting it because of the reporters from the Associated Press who vote.
So who should
So it's
win?
More.
Because Russell Wilson's never won it either, right?
Probably should win it. But Russell Wilson gets no respect.
No, he doesn't, because right now, when you talk about the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers' name's going to pop up. Patrick Mahomes' name's going to pop up. And the majority of people don't put Russell Wilson in this conversation. I've been saying it for 3 years on these shows. 3 years ago, I was mocked for it. Hell, at the start of this year, I was mocked for it. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's as good as I've ever seen. That's simple. I would rate Brady ahead of him just because of all the Super Bowls, but that's got a lot to do with the head coach that's there as opposed to Pete Carroll. And really, if they run the ball to Marshawn Lynch, he's beaten Brady in a Super Bowl, and he's got 2 rings already.
Yeah, it's crazy that after everything he's doing this year, he still might not get it.
Why does he not get the respect? Because I hear people say he plays in the Pacific Northwest. But, I mean, it's not like Baltimore is a thriving metropolis. I mean, so why does he not get the respect?
Because he's not, he's not a character. He's not flashy, and neither is Lamar Jackson. But I do feel like
Lamar Jackson's
does
flashy.
Talk a
Come
bit.
on.
But I feel like he does. But he's still humble. But he still talks more than Russell Wilson.
Dude, all you got to do is look at the way he dressed for the Heisman Trophy presentation a couple years ago. I would say he's flashy.
Russell Wilson's a little vanilla, which is good. That's what you want. But it's also not going to get you the attention if you're trying to get these MVP votes.
It works for Tom Brady. It worked for Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Russell Wilson. I don't know. I don't know. You can't explain. It's hard to explain because it really is perplexing.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at the NFL playoff race right now. We're going to start with the NFC. NFC East. Who wins it? Cowboys, Eagles, or did the Redskins come from 3 games back?
Can that really happen?
I think technically it can. Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? We've said it yesterday. The Redskins are playing the best football of the 3 teams in the second half of the season.
But that's not saying much.
I think I think Dallas is going to end up getting it. I think that they can put it together. I think Dak is playing better football than Wentz right now, and the Cowboys are a little bit healthier.
All right, I'm going to go with the Eagles just because the Cowboys are the Cowboys, and if they can screw this up, they'll screw it up. Plus, Dallas has still got to go to Philly, and I know Dak is awesome when he plays against the Eagles, but in the end, I really don't care anymore. I almost want to see him make the playoffs and upset somebody just so you get to keep Jason Garrett. It makes the show funner.
I don't know if I can deal with another year of it. I think I'll be in an institution.
How about the NFC West, where the Seahawks and Niners are tied atop at 10-2? The Rams are 7-5, so they're dead when it comes to the division. Do you think Seattle wins this division in the end, or the 49ers?
Well, let me pull up the remaining schedule for the two teams. And I think that's going to determine a lot. San Francisco looks like they go to the Saints. They have Falcons at home, which should be a win. They have the Rams at home, and I think that's going to be a tougher game than it was the first time. And then they go to Seattle. Well, now let's pull up. See that's a tough schedule. 3 out of 4 of those games is going to be tough. Now let's pull up the Seahawks here. They go to the Rams. Then they go to Carolina. Then they have the Cardinals, and they close with the 49ers. The Seahawks have an easier road.
Yeah, I would favor the Seahawks there just because of that last game at home, too.
And I also think this upcoming game for the 49ers against the Saints is going to determine a lot.
Yeah, because I think if the Niners get the win,
that's a must-win.
Yeah, if the Niners win that game, I think the Niners are going to win the division. I think they'll figure out a way to beat Seattle. I think they are a better team. It's just you can't leave the game in Russell Wilson's hands in the last 5 minutes. I think there's no doubt both of those teams make the playoffs. What about the Packers and the Vikings in the NFC North?
Seeing it's all on Dalvin Cook. If Dalvin Cook is going to be healthy the rest of the way, then I can certainly see the Vikings pulling out the division. But, the Vikings are a little bit banged up, and their defense doesn't show up a lot. I feel like their defense was better last year, and I think that could hurt them down the stretch. So I'm going to stick with Green Bay because Green Bay has a pretty soft schedule.
They both have soft schedules, and my question is, if the Vikings beat Green Bay at Green Bay, who takes the tiebreaker? Who's got the better divisional record? Do we know
I'm not
that?
sure. No.
So, I mean, if it comes down to that game, I like the Vikings. I think the Vikings will win out, even shorthanded. I don't think the schedule's real tough. I think Kirk Cousins can get it for him. I think they've got a backup.
You just don't like Aaron Rodgers, huh?
I do not like the Green Bay Packers. It has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers, who I actually like, because the great thing about Aaron Rodgers is he makes Brett Favre the third best quarterback to ever play for the Green Bay Packers. That's really important to me because I hate Brett Favre, actually.
Really?
Yes, can't stand him. Think he's the most overrated quarterback I've ever seen. So
I guess you don't listen to his show on Sirius Radio.
No, I didn't even know he had a show. I don't have Sirius Radio because why do I want to listen to Sirius Radio? Especially Brett Favre. I don't.
No,
like
I've actually never listened to the show, but I know he does have one on there.
Yeah, well, as we can tell by this show, don't let anybody do shows anymore. All right, next up in the NFC South, I think it's safe to say since they've already clinched, the Saints will be in the playoffs. So my question is, who are the two wild cards here? I mean, it looks to me like it's going to come down to whoever loses out between the Seahawks and Niners, whoever loses out between the Packers and Vikings. Do you see anything different possibly happening?
Unless, if the Vikings or one of the Vikings or Packers really go on a slide in the next 4 games and the Rams can win a couple of games, I think the Rams can sneak in. Otherwise, the playoff picture in the NFC is pretty much cut and dry.
Yeah. So I think right now you look at Seattle as the 1 seed, Cowboys at 4, 49ers at 5, beating the hell out of the Cowboys. The 6th seed would be the Vikings. Who would be the 3rd seed here right now?
Um,
That would
the
be
NFC North.
yeah, it would be the Packers. So I think you could actually see the NFC wildcard teams. I think it's possible that could be the NFC Championship game. I'm not saying it will be because I don't because I think the two best teams. I still favor the Saints against the 49ers in a championship game, just as I did at the start of the year.
Yeah, I probably would too. If and to me, it's all on Marshawn Lattimore. If Lattimore's in, that defense is completely night and day different. But if Lattimore's not, for some reason gets injured again, then I would favor the 49ers.
I would say this. I would favor the Saints without Lattimore until they get to a championship game. Because I still think you're going to have Drew Brees at home, and that's going to be a lot to deal with. We go to the AFC East, and I think this is the first time we're going into week 13 or so where we even have to question who wins the AFC East because I think the Buffalo Bills have a legit shot. I mean, I think they're a lot better than what people thought they were, and I think the Patriots have issues right now, Anthony.
Well, what separates them right now? One game?
Yeah, one game. And they still have to play again. And the Patriots play the Chiefs. The Bills play the Ravens. They're both at home. I could see them both losing those games.
Well, you got the Patriots, Chiefs, Patriots, Bengals, Patriots, Bills, and Patriots, Dolphins.
Yeah.
So realistically, the Chiefs need to win, and then the Buffalo needs to win out.
Yeah. And the rest of Buffalo, I mean, Buffalo's got to beat Baltimore. If Buffalo beats Baltimore, then they're in play here whether they win the division or not, if you know what I mean.
I don't think that game is going to be as far apart as people think.
I'm picking Buffalo. I think Buffalo is one of the few teams that has the athletes on defense to hold this game in check. And the other thing is this. Josh Allen can run too. And against Baltimore's defense, I think that could be a big difference. If he doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Buffalo Bills can beat the Baltimore Ravens.
But can the Bills stop the Ravens' rushing attack? Because that's the one weakness on the Bills.
Yeah, but how about this?
Is their run defense.
You don't have to stop it. You just slow it down. And you make the Ravens take 15 plays to go score instead of 3 or 4 with an explosive 70-yard run or a 70-yard pass in there. If you can limit explosive plays against a team like the Ravens, you got to remember, a team that runs the ball, if you make them run the ball a lot, it only takes one tackle for loss or one false start to throw everything out of whack with what they're doing offensively.
And I think another key to the game is Josh Allen. He only has 2 combined turnovers between, interceptions and fumbles lost since week 5.
Yeah, and
I think that's been the difference for the Buffalo Bills.
And I think that the Bills can run the ball on the Ravens also with Devin Singletary and Frank Gore. I think these are 2 teams that are more alike than people realize.
I agree with that.
I think the Ravens have been better the last few weeks on defense, which has really surprised me because that's why I didn't take them seriously. It wasn't Lamar Jackson. It was the fact that I thought the defense was not any good. We go to the AFC West. I think your Raiders' dream is over. The Chiefs are going to run away with that.
Yeah, the Raiders, it was fun while it lasted. I think that they tried to make the run, and eventually they just got overmatched talent-wise.
AFC
and
North.
That including the Jets. I mean, people like to knock, whoever the Jets beat. But the Jets have a lot of talent, and they're healthy now.
Sure they do. They weren't healthy when they beat your Cowboys, though, were they?
I don't think – well, no.
I just like to bring that game up. AFC North, the Ravens have that clinched with a 3-game lead. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you look at the rest of their schedule, I don't think it's beyond comprehension. They could end up 10-6 and sneak in here.
Ooh, Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
I can certainly see that, but I think Tennessee is more built for a playoff run. I think they're the team. If anybody's going to make a run, it's going to be Tennessee.
Yeah, but doesn't matter who's built for it. You got to get to the playoffs. And I think the Steelers, they play Buffalo, which should be a loss, but they'll be in the game. They play the Cardinals. They play the Browns. So I think they're going to get to at least 9 wins. And if they get to 9 wins, Mike Tomlin's my coach of the year.
9 wins does it for you?
Yeah, it does. With this lack of talent, I mean, they've got a Duck and a Rudolph who have played quarterback this year. They lost all their stars, and they are still going to possibly have a winning record. To me, I don't think anybody's done a better job than him. My number 2 guy would be John Harbaugh, because he completely remade that team in a year to fit Lamar Jackson. So those would be my top 2 guys.
Where does Kyle Shanahan fit?
Kyle Shanahan doesn't fit for me because I thought they'd be 13-3 at the start of the year, so it's no big deal to me. He's doing what he should be doing. Because I still think the 49ers have the most talent in the NFL.
In the NFL?
In the NFL. They're the best team in the NFL. Now, I don't know if they're going to win it all because I have doubts about Kyle Shanahan.
What about Jimmy Garoppolo?
I have no doubts about Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought he was a stud when I saw him at Eastern Illinois, and I still do. That's why I thought they would win 13 games this year. My questions all come down to whether Kyle Shanahan can coach in a big situation or not. Because from what I've seen, he has failed miserably before there. But I think he can coach. That's why I thought the 49ers were at least in the NFC Championship game this year. But I think the Niners have more. I mean, their defensive front 7 is one of the best in the NFL. Their offensive line, when healthy, is one of the best in the NFL. They can run the ball. They throw the ball. They still lack a big-time wide receiving threat, I think. But you've got a big-time wide receiving threat in George Kittle. He's just a tight end instead of a wide receiver. That worked all right for the Patriots with Gronk. Why can't it work with the 49ers and Kittle? So, to me, Shanahan has done a great job, but he's done what I thought he should do. I never thought, if you would have told me 2 years ago, we're eliminating all these guys from the Steelers and Mike Tomlin can get these guys to 9-7, that would impress me.
No, I mean, I think Tomlin deserves it just for what he's done up to this point.
Yeah. And Freddie Kitchens deserves it, too, just as a parting gift. Because he's going to be parting. All right, AFC South. Texans or Titans, Anthony? Or the Colts. The Colts are only 2 games back, but I think the Colts are pretty much dead in the water.
I think it's probably going to be Houston. Would it surprise me if Tennessee made a run for the division? No, but it really is Houston's to lose.
Well, let's look at the Texans' schedule, and we'll see. The Texans play the Broncos. They go to Tennessee, which could tie this divisional race up. They go to Tampa Bay before they play Tennessee again, so they're going to play twice. And the game that would scare me if I'm a Texans fan is that Buccaneers game because that defense is good. And if Jameis Winston's on, he's kind of like the black version of Ryan Fitzpatrick. When he's on, you can't beat him. When he's off, you can't lose to him. So I think that's a dangerous schedule. And it's going to come down to Titans. If they can sweep the Texans, will win the division. The question is, can they sweep them?
I think it's going to be tough, but Ryan Tannehill is playing great football. But then again, if you look at the Titans' schedule in between the 2 Houston games, because you got what should be a win going to Oakland this week, and then in between the 2 Houston games, you have the Saints.
Yeah, that's scary. Real scary. But all right. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I'm just going to see if there's any
the Patriots waived kicker Kai Forbath after 1 game.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to end up hurting New England. I mean, they were going to be on their 4th or 5th kicker since Gostowski.
That always hurts.
And if that offense doesn't turn it around, and they're going to be playing in these close games. Those points matter. Just go ask the Cowboys because they've
Ask
lost
the
a couple
Colts.
of close games.
I mean, the Colts would probably be in first place if they had a kicker right now.
Couple of your Bengals, they activated John Ross from injured reserve. He'll be good to go this week.
Pretty exciting.
What else do we have? Did we talk about Foles being benched?
No, we didn't. What do you
for
think
Gardner
of that?
Minshew?
I think we might have yesterday, but
I think it's the right move.
Yeah, it is. And you were really wrong about Nick Foles.
I'm really
you
wrong
have
about
the Jags
Nick Foles.
going to the Super Bowl.
He's just
if I
a
remember
guy.
right.
Nick Foles is just a guy outside of Philly.
Yeah, and I think what most people don't realize is most of the guys in the NFL that are playing quarterback are just a guy. I mean, we've gone through this before when we do the quarterback rankings with Sam Teets, and we'll do it with him again tomorrow. After the first 4 or 5 guys 5 through 15 are good guys. But after 15, you get a bunch of guys that are really just backup quarterbacks.
They are saying Dalvin Cook will be ready for Week 14.
He better be, because they need to win some games now. And hopefully he's ready, just because I think that's a team that can win something if they're healthy. So hopefully, what's the status on Adam Thielen?
I thought Thielen was going to end up playing on, last night, and he had a setback last week, so I still think he's day-to-day.
All right. Damn. I had some news that I was told earlier, too, that would have fit in with the show that we do, and I can't remember what the hell it was. But it was a good one about somebody being hurt and not playing this week, so maybe I can remember that by tomorrow, or I'll tweet it out later. Anything else? If nothing else, tell everybody where they can find you, which I know right now, if you go to the front page of thegruelingtruth.com, you can find your latest FF Face-Off show with Mike Hoff.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and you can follow my show at the FF Face-Off, and we can be found anywhere on social media and the top podcast platforms.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We will be back tomorrow with Sam Teets to talk NFL quarterback rankings, and I'm betting he doesn't have Lamar Jackson out of the top 10 still. I think we talked him out of that 2 weeks ago anyways. So make sure you check us out there. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.